Okay, so next up we have Julian Ranger, the co-founder of DigiMe. I'm very excited to have Julian follow the DEPA presentation because I'd really like to understand similarities and differences between what the Indian data empowerment and protection architecture aims to do versus what the commercial venture that Julian has co-founded and designed called DigiMe attempts to do. So without anything else, Julian, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you. Can I just check that you can A, hear me, and B, see the slides?
Yes and yes.
Excellent. And I would hate to think with that introduction that it's a commercial versus what's happening in India. In fact, what we're doing is exactly in lockstep with what India are doing, and it's a cooperative thing. So I don't see, and I hope nobody else does, that the two things are, in that case, different. They're additive. So with that said, I'll dive into what we're doing. And it's really about doing more with data, but doing it privately and securely. And if we look within Europe, where we're based, although we have operations around the world, GDPR has driven a lot of the discussion. But this discussion is very similar in very many parts of the world. And people are quite familiar now, certainly in the UK and in other parts of Europe, about GDPR because it was all about privacy, protection, and we all got lots of emails saying, will we reconsent to marketing messages or reconsent to cookies? And of course, not a lot of people did, so there's been reductions in the activity as a consequence. And many people would say that's what we should expect, a restriction of the market, but now under our control, under individual control, deciding what we want so we get what we want with privacy and security. And so it doesn't seem in conflict, but actually I would say it is in conflict with what we as individuals want and what society needs. Because whilst we must restore privacy and control, we actually have to realize that we need to share more data, not less. So just as India points out that data rich and the economic benefits that will come if they can share that data, that applies all around the world to everybody. We have to find a new model that allows us to share more, but with privacy and security. And a simple use case for that is thinking about personalized medicine and personalized health. If we're going to do that, we need to share our health history from when we were born, maybe wearables with heart rate and temperature, etc., maybe genomics, maybe the food we eat and buy, maybe even our social data, so our mental state can be taken into account at any one time. So the question is, how do we do more? So in other words, where we are today, there's two prevailing themes, if you like, narratives. One is privacy, security, and consent. And so we have the legislation. But the other is there's an inequitable value exchange. Other people are making more value out of my data than I am. And that leads to giving back control, but that leads to reduced sharing. And actually, that's a very bad message. Nobody wants to go from a large GDP to a lower GDP. No one wants to go backwards in terms of the capabilities that we're doing. And actually, what has happened is that we've forgotten that there is this requirement to share more. And we need to look at today's architecture with lots of companies out there, lots of stovepipes of data, and say, how do we end up bringing that data together, but in a way where it's not being done by tracking behind our back privacy and security? Because the current architecture can't do it. If you take today's architecture and say to people who are dealing with personalized medicine or smart cities or IoT or new fintechs or looking after or enabling people with low credit to get credit, any of those things, you'll hear from people that they want what we would call rich data with 5 characteristics. Single source, so we don't have to worry about correlation effects. Wide across data categories, so we can do the new things. Deep in time, accurate, and also preferably a thing called normalized, which means putting it all into a single form. So a consuming entity doesn't necessarily have to know everything about the oddities of where the data came from. Our current architecture doesn't support that. And in fact, it's very questionable whether any one company could bring all of the data about an individual together, even if we ignored privacy and security. But what we do know is that there is one person in the whole system that knows about me, Julian, and one person that knows about each of you who are listening. And that, of course, is ourselves. We can bring all the data together. Only I know every doctor I've been to in hospital, wearables I'm doing, the bank accounts I've got, the education I did, where I buy food, etc., etc. So if we can bring the data together at the individual, change the architecture, in other words, then we can end up with privacy, security, and consent, and we can end up doing more, increasing the capability, GDP of every nation, increasing the value so that everybody benefits. And that's what this is all about. That is what DigiMe is about. And it applies whether you're in a developed nation, developing, whether you're a refugee, dispossessed, whatever it may be. It will democratize data, so it also means that any individual can create a new company using the best data, irrespective of whether a big company can do it too. It's all down to whether an individual will share that data with you. And it allows everybody then to share in value. And I use the phrase value rather than money because value might be a service, it might be convenience, or it might be reward. So this isn't about a choice between personal data rights or innovation, or between privacy and security or innovation, but it's about rights and privacy and security and innovation and greater value to all, whether that all is individuals, businesses, governments, and society as a whole. Now that sounds like a perfect nirvana. How could it possibly happen? Well, that's what we have built and are working on. And so it's all about making sure that the individual has the data, and then all the individuals together create effectively the data grid. So how does it work? Well, we all know how email works. I might download a product like Outlook. I will authenticate, as you can see on the left-hand side here, my various different email sources, and all my data comes back down to me. And Microsoft, as the providers of Outlook, don't get to see, touch, or hold any of my data. And now I've got my data, I can share it. I can share my emails with other people if I want to. So DigiMe is very much the same. With DigiMe, you download a copy of DigiMe to whatever device you've got. That's Mac, PC, Android, iOS, and in fact, a web-only version. You connect it to your data sources. You authenticate only once. Every day, your DigiMe gets your data, and you choose to put it wherever you want. So at the moment, that can be anything of Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, and others are coming along. So you end up with a 100% private library, a full copy of all of your data from all of these sources that's fully secured with only your encryption. And DigiMe, the company, doesn't see, touch, or hold data ever. And then you have the ability, using the consent architecture that is built in, and like was explained for India, that includes an electronic consent in a standardized format, etc., that anybody can now ask you for data. So you effectively create a data grid and a decentralized, because everybody has their own data. So you simply download our app, choose where you want to see or store your library, then connect any sources. And we're already live with social, financial, medical, wearables, music, and other data. And that includes the world's first patient-facing API in Iceland. It includes the UK NHS. It includes very many of the US health services like Epic and Cerner, Blue Button, and CDA. It includes, we're just about to add some European, some Australian, and some other health sources over time, as well as other pieces. I'll skip over that. So let's have a look at a quick video, slightly older UI version, but shows you what's happening. So you basically start by choosing where you want to store your data so that you control it. Say nobody else gets it. It's untouchable by anybody else. It's all fully encrypted. Go from there. You authenticate your various sources and your data comes down. No other activity is required. It's very, very simple. You can see all of your data in a long timeline. You can do a search on any item at any time. All of this, by the way, is available today. This is real operational software. It's not a design. It's taken over 7 years to get all fully built and done to this level. And you can search for any of your data, and you'll see right at the end, as we're coming up to this, that you can then actually give consent to another app or web service to ask for your data. And that should be coming up any moment after the Icelandic health there. Here we go. So there's another app here. This particular app is looking to do some social analytics. So it's asking for your data. It uses a full consent certificate, which I'll come back to. And if you say yes, then your data is extracted by your DigiMe and put into that app. Again, the company doesn't see, touch, or hold the data. And there you can see the app got your data. And in fact, because in this example, the data didn't leave your phone, it's fully private. And in fact, as we go forwards in life, there'll be more processing brought to your data rather than your data to processing, which is better, in fact, for businesses because they don't have the risk and cost of holding your data. Better for you because your data isn't being promulgated all around the world. So there's a number of core challenges that need to be solved to do that. How to collect all the data and do it, how to normalize all that data, which is based upon actually my previous career doing that in the military and stuff, and then how to consent and move that data, and those have been done. If we look at consent access, there's a lot of discussion about whether or not it is possible to give explicit and informed consent. And the answer is it is, but it's not a choice of just give me your data or read 20 pages. It's a layered consent. We work very hard to work out what are the main things that need to be displayed so that people can give informed consent. 6 key questions: what data do they want in detail? What is going to be done with your data and what are you going to get back? Will data leave your device? Will it be shared with third parties? And if so, who and why? And will there be right to forget? And so that's all very clear on the certificate. It's done using international standards as well that we've helped develop. So there's a consent receipt international standard, much like the one that India is currently using. I'm going to show you now an app that uses this consent receipt to pull data. This was produced literally in about 5 to 6 days of effort, because when all the data is there, it's very easy for people to produce new capabilities. So the app has used the SDKs, which are available across iOS, Android, and web, has asked for data. If the individual said yes, then all of that data goes across. And this app, without taking any data off your phone, can give you a full insight to all of your different bank accounts and information. And as I said, was produced literally in 5 days of effort, because all that the app developer had to do here was process the data. They didn't have to go and get it, didn't have to normalize it or anything like that. So it enables more rapid innovation. In this particular case, as this particular video, we're just talking finance, but you could merge data from different streams, do whatever you want to do with it. People also say, will individuals manage their data? To which my response is no, they won't. Nobody wants to manage data. In fact, it's unlikely that people want to manage their finances very well. It has to be made very easy. And so we've put a lot of effort over the years about usability. You've seen that in the app there. we look and strive for over 70% on usability tests with random people around the world, and we get that. But the key answer here is, can you make it so that it's as easy as authenticate once, your data comes down, you have full control, clear consent, and if you can make it that easy, which we believe we have, then this architectural change to the individual holding their data opens everything else up. We are a business. Businesses have to make money, but that doesn't mean to say that it has to be expensive. It doesn't mean to say that the balance of money goes more to the business, to the individual. So we made a decision right up front that we would aim to take less than 1% of the economic value of data, acting as the data grid. And so we don't charge the user anything. We don't see their data. We're literally a postman. And when a business asks for data, they pay 10 cents. And there are caps so that if it's a charity or somebody gets less than that, they pay a lot less. And the idea behind that is we will be profitable, but we're just a postal service, a data grid, and all the remaining value is split between businesses and individuals in whatever way the market takes it as individuals want. There are, across finance, across health, there are enormous benefits when the individual has the data. They have all of that rich data in one place and can share it. Health is a particular interesting one. There's some apps on the right-hand side that have already been available. You can move to a whole new form of patient centricity, which overcomes an enormous amount of problems in all of our healthcare, whether that's, again, developing or developed nations. You've always got your data with you, reduces mistakes, increases awareness, allows you to use health apps with your rich data. It means that you can move and your data moves with you. It allows research to get really deep data, not just a scan, but a scan your medical history. If you look on the web now, there's quite a lot about patient centricity that has been spawned from this type of thing. This table and these presentations will be available afterwards, I understand. You can look through it. There is a whole change to health across all sorts of different nations coming when the individual can now be part of that whole system. And we're already working with quite a lot of people to do that. So what's it required to make it work in any nation? And actually, not much. You don't even need the full laws of GDPR or whatever else. If all you have is a requirement for data portability, preferably with a well-formed API. Actually, this is an old presentation, so I don't quite know why that's, sorry, that was there. Old slide, Paul, sorry about that. If you specify with a well-formed API, then you will have all that you need to make what I've just said work. Now, there are things that would be useful on top of that, which is an ISO standard trust framework so that companies can show that they are trustworthy with your data. Explicit and informed consent is a good bar to have. Data minimization is a good bar. But for any nation, just having data portability law is all that is needed. Often talked about standards. Should we insist upon interoperability standards for the data? Well, I spent 20 years as a standards person, so you'd probably think I'd say yes. They definitely reduce the problem set. But actually, standards, for various reasons, never fully solve the interoperability problem. And you have to bring that into nodes such as DigiMe and such as the other products you'll be hearing about downstream, which are the points where the maximum data flow is. So we do need standards, they will come, but if you have data portability today, then you enable this whole ecosystem to work immediately. So private sharing, it is here already today with DigiMe, and you're seeing that building, and there are others coming. We work, as I said, within the Indian environment. We work across Europe and US and Australia and others. And we work very hard to bring interoperability to work with other solutions, such as those you're about to hear. So all of these things that I've put down on this slide at the front of the presentation are true and accurate. can happen today. We get rights to our data, we get privacy, security, and consent as it happens. It enables innovation, it enables us to do more, and that is not just for individuals. Businesses can do more. Governments can now also share data, give data back, help people. And as a society, if we can do more with privacy, security, and consent, then that all works. And that's me finished. Thank you very much indeed.